Thank you very much, Archbishop, not only for your important warning, but also for having traveled from Africa, please, to be here with us, and in that way demonstrate the interconnection between what's happening to the melting of the ice and the climate transformation and the fate of your people and your continent. But you're also the head of the international organizations of the Icelandic National Church. I think for us in Iceland it's an interesting statement that the Lutheran World Cooperation is under your leadership. So we will take a few questions from the audience. If somebody has a question already and is prepared to raise your hands. But while we wait, let me ask you oh yes, there's a question there. Yes, let's take that. Yes.
My name is Olaf Heinrich. I'm a student from Poland, and I would like to ask you, what is your attitude toward the war in Ukraine? Thanks.
As Lutheran World Federation, we have stated very clearly our disagreement with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And of course, we have member churches in both countries, but we have, in the last council, made very clear our stand with the churches in Ukraine and disagreeing that this has happened. But we call more strongly that the urgency to ensure that this is brought to an end by any means, but particularly, if possible, dialogue, to get this to an end, that we do not prolong the war that is causing so much pain, not only in Ukraine, not only in Russia, but the surrounding nations.
Okay, are there any more questions from the hall? Let me ask you this. We have had a number of church leaders here on the stage during the history of the assemblies. Cardinal Tascon, representing His Holiness the Pope, attended the first assembly. The leader of the Orthodox Church in Constantinople, as he prefers to call it, also made a very historic speech from the stage calling for action on climate change. So it's absolutely clear to us that the churches have become an important force in the global debate on climate change. But my question is this: what more can the churches do in order to wake up the leadership of the world? And then I don't mean just the political leadership, but the business leadership, the others, to this immediate close threats that has been manifested in many sessions here during this assembly.
Yeah. Thank you very much. A few years ago, the Lutheran World Federation recognized that the church is sort of like a sleeping giant, and we developed a program called Waking the Giant. And the purpose of this program is, first of all, to understand that as churches, we cannot stand by the side. And it's not time for churches to do their own thing. We must find a way to connect with scientific researchers, political leaders, and to continue to exchange knowledge and understanding, but also engage, because we are key players when it comes to people who are directly impacted by climate change. And we know it. We are there before, and we are there when it's happening, and we are there when everybody else leaves. So I think what we are developing is the capacity to engage in advocacy at local, at global, and at regional levels, on one hand. But on the other hand, continue to empower and accompany member churches as they do what they can do to help the most vulnerable communities to adapt and to survive in this situation.
Well, thank you very much for that. Waking the giant is I haven't heard that before. It just shows my ignorance, but I think you're exactly on the ball. Am I correct that you're going to make the sermon at the Sunday service in our biggest church tomorrow?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward.
That will be historic, I think. You know, this cathedral on top of the hill, probably one of the most photographed buildings in Europe, is also named after a famous Icelandic poet centuries ago. So can I finally ask you, I know it's not usual for an archbishop to reveal the message of his sermon, but what will be the core of your sermon tomorrow? Because many of these participants will return home, so they can't be in the church tomorrow morning. You have this unique opportunity to carry the message of your sermon to them as well.
The message tomorrow is taken from Mark chapter 12, beginning from verse 27 to 34. And it's about Jesus' encounter with this scribe who comes and asks him, what is the most important commandment? And of course, telling Jesus said, well, you know it. Love God and serve your neighbor. He says, yes, that's correct. But Jesus said, well, you are just close to the kingdom. I think the whole thing is that the scribe, he knows it, he says it, he rehearses the commandment, but to take action is a problem. So I think the message for this gathering is that, well, it's not only about knowledge about climate change and the Arctic cycle, but get into action.
Well, it will clearly be a powerful sermon. I'm sure some people will change their flights in order to be there tomorrow morning. But thank you very much for coming. We are honored to have you here with us. We wish you all the best in your endeavors. And we will now move to China, in the States. So I think it is interesting evidence of the global reach of this gathering that we have these long-distance travelers, both from Africa and China, in the final stages. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much that I could mediate between China and NATO.